Imagine opening your refrigerator and finding almost nothing inside. No bread, no cereal, no frozen pizza, no emergency chocolate hiding behind the vegetables. Now imagine that this was not one bad grocery trip. It was your entire world. For most of human history, food was something you searched for, followed, dug up, cracked open, trapped, or waited for. And that meant humans could not afford to be picky. A food that looks strange to us could mean calories, fat, protein, or simply another day alive. But here is the surprising part. Ancient humans were not randomly eating disgusting things. They were solving a very practical problem. What can we safely eat right now? That question sounds simple. It was not. Because nature does not put nutrition into convenient supermarket packages. Sometimes the best calories were inside bones. Sometimes they were inside shells. Sometimes they were attached to tiny creatures most modern people would rather avoid. And sometimes the food was something you would walk past without even recognizing it as food. One major rule shaped ancient eating. Waste could be expensive. When an animal was successfully hunted, throwing away useful parts meant throwing away energy. That is why bones mattered. Inside many large bones is marrow, a rich, fatty tissue that can provide substantial energy. You do not need a sophisticated kitchen to understand its value. You simply need to be hungry. Imagine an early human holding a heavy animal bone. There is meat around the outside, but there is something valuable hidden inside. The bone becomes a container. A stone becomes the tool. And suddenly, something that looked like a leftover becomes food. This simple idea changes how we should imagine prehistoric meals. They were not necessarily giant piles of perfectly prepared meat. They could be mixtures of whatever valuable calories people could obtain. Fat, meat, organs, shellfish, eggs, seeds, tubers, fruit, honey, insects. Different environments offered completely different menus. A person living beside a river had different opportunities from someone living on a cold grassland. A person near the coast had access to an entirely different food system. And that variety mattered, because depending on one food source could be dangerous. If the herd disappeared, what happened next? If the plants failed, what happened then? If winter arrived early, what was left? The answer was often simple. Look somewhere else. This is one reason insects are so interesting. Across many human societies, insects have been used as food. They can provide protein and calories, and some species can occur in huge numbers. To someone raised around modern packaged food, a bowl of roasted insects may look bizarre. To a hungry person, it may simply look like lunch. The same principle applies to many animals that are rarely considered food in modern Western diets. Bird eggs could provide concentrated nutrition. Shellfish could be gathered without chasing a large animal. Small animals could sometimes offer food with less danger than confronting a giant predator. That does not mean every ancient person ate everything available. Absolutely not. Humans still had preferences, traditions, taboos, and knowledge about what was safe. And that part is extremely important. Knowing what not to eat could be just as valuable as knowing what to eat. Some plants contain natural chemical defenses. Some fungi can be dangerous. Some animals can become hazardous if prepared incorrectly. So prehistoric survival was not simply about being willing to eat anything. It was about learning. Generation after generation, people accumulated knowledge about landscapes and seasons. Which berries appear first? Which roots can be dug after rain? Where do shellfish gather? When do fish move? Which plants need processing? That knowledge was effectively an ancient food database. Except there was no search bar. Instead, the database lived inside people. And it had to be remembered. There is another fascinating part of this story. Humans did not only eat what was immediately available, they also changed food. Cooking is one of the biggest examples. Heat can make some foods easier to chew and digest. It can also change flavor and texture. A raw item and a cooked item can become almost completely different experiences. Then there was crushing, pounding, grinding, peeling, soaking, drying, and other forms of processing. Food technology did not begin with factories. It began with people trying to make difficult food more useful. Even something as simple as cracking a nut represents a tiny technological problem. The outside is hard. The reward is hidden inside. The solution requires a tool or technique, and humans became extraordinarily good at solving these problems. Look at bone again. A bone is not just food. It is a puzzle. There may be fat inside. There may be useful tissue attached to it. And the animal may also provide skin, sinew, teeth, horns, or other materials. So a successful hunt could produce much more than dinner. It could produce tools, clothing materials, cordage, containers, and fuel. That made large animals valuable in many ways. But relying on huge animals also carried risk. Large prey can be difficult and dangerous to obtain. Small foods offered another strategy. Instead of chasing one enormous meal, gather many little meals. A basket of shellfish, a collection of eggs, a handful of edible seeds, a pile of insects, roots from the ground, fruit from nearby plants. Individually, these foods may seem insignificant. Together, they can become a meal. And this reveals something important about human survival. We are remarkably flexible eaters. Our species spread across environments with radically different climates and ecosystems. That flexibility helped. But flexibility does not mean unlimited choice. Ancient diets were shaped by geography. They were shaped by season. They were shaped by technology. They were shaped by culture. And they were shaped by simple luck. A good year could bring abundance. A bad year could turn familiar foods into scarce resources. That is when unusual foods could become especially important. Foods considered secondary during good times could become essential during difficult times. The strange food was not necessarily the favorite. It was the backup plan. And backup plans are incredibly important when there is no supermarket around the corner. Think about honey. Finding a natural honey source could mean a very valuable burst of energy. But collecting it could also be unpleasant, or risky, or both. That pattern appears again and again. Food can be nutritious without being easy to obtain. Ancient humans constantly balanced reward against effort. Is this food worth the energy required to collect it? Is it dangerous? Will there be enough? Can we carry it? Can we preserve it? Can children eat it? Those questions sound modern. They are not. Human beings have probably been asking versions of them for an extremely long time. And that changes our picture of prehistoric people. They were not simply wandering around eating whatever happened to be nearby. They were making decisions. They were observing. They were remembering. They were experimenting. And they were passing information to other people. A landscape that looks empty to us could contain an enormous amount of information. The location of water, the movement of animals, the appearance of plants, the timing of fruit, the safest places to gather, the dangerous places to avoid. For someone with this knowledge, the environment was not empty. It was a map of possibilities, and food was everywhere, just not always in obvious places. A modern supermarket hides almost all of the work behind a package. A prehistoric meal exposed the work immediately. Someone had to find it. Someone had to collect it. Someone had to prepare it. And sometimes, someone had to defend it. That is why some ancient foods may look disgusting from a modern perspective. We are seeing the finished food without seeing the problem it solved. Bone marrow looks strange. An insect can look strange. A wild tuber can look strange. A shellfish may look strange. But remove the supermarket. Remove refrigeration. Remove instant delivery. Remove the assumption that food should look familiar. Suddenly the definition of edible becomes much wider. And that is probably the most important lesson. Ancient humans did not survive because they had perfect food. They survived because they could adapt when perfect food did not exist. They learned what the landscape offered. They used tools to unlock difficult foods. They shared knowledge. They changed techniques. And when necessary, they ate things that made sense nutritionally, even if they looked strange to us. So the next time you see an unfamiliar food and wonder, who would eat that? Remember something. For most of human history, the better question was probably, can we eat it safely? Because when your kitchen is an entire landscape, curiosity is not just entertainment. It can become survival.